All right. That's a tad better. Let's make that good. Okay. Now I've got to wait for people to join. Hey, someone's found it. Hello. And Tim is here. Thank you. How many have we got? We've got 3 people who've joined. If the previous live stream still exists, hey Robert, could anyone like go comment on that or something and told people you're waiting there to come here? I figured out what I did wrong. There was some crap with YouTube, like, so there's two ways that you can do YouTube live streams. The first way is what I'm doing now, which is through the webcam, and the other one is if you want to use like a special live stream encoder and you want to like put special effects and stuff in the stream. And yeah, the thing with that is the way that you create them looks extremely similar, but is a bit different. And so I accidentally created it as the encoder and not the webcam. And then I was getting confused because it was like, oh, we're not receiving any data from your encoder. And I'm like, I don't want a bloody encoder, you know? So, anyway. If there's anyone here that hasn't said hello, please say hello, because there's 5 people here apparently, and I can only see 3 people who have said hello. Let me see if I can actually share this copy. All right. Stream up. Okay. All right, I'll answer Applehead's question and then we'll get into the main topic. Do I have any tips for walking or riding along abandoned railways? I do. I've walked, how many railways have I walked? Abandoned railways. I've done Upfield to Somerton, I've done Baxter to Mornington, I've done Cranbourne to Yarram, and I've done Maryborough to Newstead. I was planning on going from Newstead to Castlemaine as well, but I never got around to that. Yeah, so what else? Yeah, my tips, I guess this is how I did it. Depends if you want to do a day trip or a multi-day trip. You're just doing a day trip, something like Upfield, Somerton, back to the Mornington. I'd recommend just going on like Google Maps or something, getting an idea of the route, getting an idea of how long it is, figuring out how fast you're going to walk. I generally use the rule of about 4 k's an hour, and that covers me for breaks and whatnot, you know. Yeah, and that's for both. It's probably more like 5 or 6 k's an hour if you're going on a day trip, but if you're going on a multi-day trip, then yeah, 4 k's an hour. Hey Pat, I'm going good. Yeah, and so for the day trip walking railway lines, you just want to yeah, figure out where you go, figure out how long it's going to take. Oh, and I started on the Healesville line. I think I got to Yarra Glen or something, and then gave up because it was raining and it was freezing cold, and I was ill-prepared clothing-wise. So there's a tip. Make sure you're prepared clothing-wise. Check the weather. You're going to be out in the open. And what else? Multi-day trips. You want to do a fair bit of planning for multi-day trips. Les and I, when we do all of our multi-day trips, it's taken us quite a while to do the planning. The sort of things that I do with that is I will, if you Google My Maps, use that, get yourself familiar with that, and we would create a map of the railway line, would like trace it out, and put markers along the way for places like any points of interest, like stations, any camping grounds for the towns. There's sometimes camping grounds, there's sometimes not. Sometimes it's free, sometimes it's a caravan park. You have to work that out for yourself. And if there's no sort of public camping grounds, you've got to find one. And for the multi-day trips, I definitely recommend going and searching it out, and this will lead into what I'm going to talk about later. You want to go and scope it out by car, and just make sure that everything is as you expected. And yeah, can I think of any other quick tips? In terms of experience level in hiking, you don't need to be that experienced, but you can adjust it based on your experience level. I tend to like to be in a town of some sort or nearby a town at the end of a day, and so that way it's easy to access facilities. And yeah, if it's the worst case scenario and you can't be near a town because it's just too far away, or there is no town anymore, or something like that, and you really need to, and let's just say you need to camp bush. Make sure you're properly prepared for that. Like, bring toilet paper, and you should probably bring that anyway as backup. Bring a shovel so that you can bury your waste. And speaking of waste, don't leave anything behind that doesn't have to get left behind. Trawara. Applehead says Trawala. Are you talking about Trawala, as in the station Trawala? I've been there. Tim says there's some abandoned private rail lines used by timber logging companies that would be interesting to hike along. Yeah, man, old timber tramways, they are something. I always like to go, I much prefer to go on the railway lines. My first preference is a railway line that has tracks but isn't used, obviously. You don't really want to go walking on a track that is used. Or if you really must do that, then be very aware of what you're doing. Second preference is like a rail trail. On my South Gippsland hike from Cranbourne to Yarram, the first half of that, Cranbourne to Leongatha, was abandoned railways, and the second half was a rail trail. But yeah, the railway lines aren't particularly difficult to walk. It's just distance. Like, the gradients aren't that much. The most you'll get is probably like 1 in 40. If you're hiking the Cudgewell line or something, 1 in 30. Timber tramways, that might be a bit different. Thing with timber tramways is a lot of them, in fact, I don't know if there's any of them that still have tracks, and a lot of them are passed through private property now, which is not the most ideal. If the railway line's been sold off, if the land's been sold off, I tend not to hike it. What happened to the Healesville railway video? You saw it once. Yeah, we had to take that down because the Healesville, the tourist railway there, basically said we were trespassing on their line, which was true, but there were no trains running on that day. But okay, we did encounter a high rail vehicle, so perhaps we should have planned that a bit better. But they threatened further action if we don't take it down. And although I sort of doubt that they would have actually taken further action, Les and I just decided we'd take it down. But it was a really good video, and it's kind of a shame because a lot of the Healesville line, the tracks at least, have been pulled up. So I don't know, maybe the second half of that video will be re-released one day. I don't know. It was a good video though. Do you watch out for snakes? And what about bridges? Yeah, you definitely have to watch out for snakes, especially in Victoria. The most likely type of snake that you'll encounter is a brown snake, and you don't want to mess with brown snakes, especially considering how far you are away from help usually. I've definitely seen a few snakes walking along the lines, but I haven't actually, no one's been bitten by a snake, thank God. But that's why you carry a first aid kit, to help deal with that sort of thing, and read up a bit about dealing with snake bites. And also you've got to consider you might not be in reception. So that can be a big contributing factor. So try to stick together. That's another tip. Try to be with at least one other person. I was sort of guilty in some parts of walking ahead because Les was being slow, but I'd prefer to stick with someone, because that way, if one person gets seriously hurt, like a snake bite or something, you can deal with it. And you're not, at least there's one person who can get help or something like that. About bridges, assess the bridge, really, is about the best I can say. Some bridges you'll find are quite all right to walk on. I've walked on a number of abandoned bridges. Sometimes they're not, and sometimes they're unavoidable to walk on a bridge that's perhaps a bit dodgy, but say there's just no way down. And yeah, you've got to be careful as well, because you potentially got a big heavy hiking pack on you. The most risky bridge I've probably encountered was one on the South Gippsland line. Try to avoid bridges if you can, like walking around, like down, or maybe on the road, beside the road if you have to. The most risky bridge I encountered was on the South Gippsland line. We were in thick forestry stuff, nowhere near a road or anything. There's no real other way around. You just had to walk over this bridge, and some of the sleepers were looking a little bit shitty, and there was no ballast. You could see between the sleepers right down to the river. So that was a bit dodgy, and in that case I just made sure that I walked as close to the rail as I could, because that way, if you think about it, like, here's my pen, if you think about it, where that's a sleeper, if you're walking in the middle, it's going to create the most force bending it and potentially breaking it. So you want to walk near the edges to try and avoid that, and just be very careful. Just take it slowly, it's better for you to take it slowly and perhaps arrive into camp a bit later than you rushing it and potentially hurting yourself badly when you're a long way from help. I think you need to consider everybody. Yes. How many hours / kilometers of hiking a day do you aim for? I try to aim for sort of 15 to 20 Ks a day, but as I said before, I always try to end up in a town or something at the end of the day. So look, sometimes you might assess it, and this is why you plan it out, because you might be like, well, one town over is only like 10-ish Ks, and that's a short day. That's like maybe 2.5 hours walking. And you're like, I'd kind of like to cover a bit more distance, but if I go 2 towns over, then that's more like 25 Ks. And so, then it's a lot longer. That's more like 6 hours, 7 hours walking, and you might get slower because it's 25 Ks is a long way to go in a day if you're not an experienced hiker. And so, yeah, you might just want to consider, do you stop at the 10K and just call it a short day and then, do 15 Ks the next day? Or do you want to do it all in one day? It's really up to you. Also consider, in terms of time, getting to and from the railway. Like, for example, with my Maryborough, it was planned for Maryborough to Castlemaine. When we looked at the train times to get up there, and generally, if you can, go by public transport, because that way you don't have to deal with car logistics, with a car being stuck at one end. You look at the times of the transport to get you to and from there. So we arrived into Maryborough at night and then slept in Maryborough for the night at a caravan park and then started walking the next day. And also consider things like, if you're say you're ending in Castlemaine, look at, well, what is the last train? When does the last train back to Melbourne come at? Because you've got to be aware of that, and you definitely want to make sure that, you're within a good margin to catch that, and account for, just in case something doesn't go according to plan and you have to spend a bit more time than you thought. Hi Floyd, we have some great abandoned railway lines here where I am in Cooma, New South Wales. Yeah, there's lots of abandoned railway lines in New South Wales. New South Wales, I think New South Wales people, correct me if I'm wrong, but it requires an act of Parliament to remove a railway line. And so they generally don't remove their railway lines because it's too much effort, basically. There are some that get removed, but it's a bit of effort. That's correct, cool. It basically takes a bit of effort, whereas in Victoria, V-Line can just decide we want to pull up the tracks, which is fair enough. They can do that, The track's worth a bit of money. All that steel, you could use it. And I know of a few railway lines that have in recent years been pulled up, and the rail has been reused in other in-use lines. So that's something. But yeah, what it sort of means essentially is New South Wales has got a lot more abandoned railway lines than Victoria. I'll put a link in the chat, which is for my railway map of Victorian lines. And if you go on that and look, orange lines will be the ones that have tracks in them. So, Okay. Okay, it doesn't come up as a direct link, but if you copy and paste that, you'll find it. Yeah, there's one old railway on private land near Trawool or Gindin between Seymour and Yea. I'd love to explore the whole mill setup, complete analysis for 50s and 60s. Oh, that sounds cool. Timber logging setup. Okay, that'll be interesting. Okay, Queensland has a few too. Yeah, Robert, can you tell me anything about like whether Queensland requires an act of parliament or something, or if there's some other barrier to ripping up lines soon afterwards? Because I've got no idea with Queensland, but I do know they have a few. But I don't know how easy it is for the government to just decide, oh, we're going to rip up a track. Well, it's 20 minutes into the stream and I still haven't started on my main topic, which is the value of a car. So I guess I'll start on that. Yeah, I'll start by saying that when I was, well, okay, I guess I'll preference this for the international viewers or perhaps even the interstate. Here's how it works in Victoria, at least. In terms of your license, we have what I think they call it a graduated licensing system or something like that. Basically, when you're 16 years old, you can start on your learners and you've got to spend 120 hours and 2 years building up those hours, and then you can get your Ps when you're 18 and you're on your Ps, your red P for 1 year and your green Ps for 3 or 4 years. Now I can't remember. I think, wait, I'm getting off my green Ps soon. So I got my Ps at 18, so that means 19 I get off my red. So it's 3 years. Yeah. But before I was, and sort of when I was on my Ls, when I was learning to drive, when you're on your learners, by the way, you've got to have a fully licensed driver sitting in the passenger seat at all time, sort of coaching you. And so there's sort of two drivers in the car, but, you know, only one driver's got the controls. And yeah, I didn't really realise how good cars were in terms of the mobility. Because before that, you know, I just got around by public transport. And, well, Melbourne's public transport, you know, it's not the greatest, but it's also not the worst. You know, you can get to most places. It might take you a bit longer, but you can get there. And so I sort of went like, okay, yeah, I mean, I'll get my license and stuff, and, you know, that'd be cool. But I don't know how much I'm actually going to drive, to be honest. And so I had no real interest in saving up for a car either. So yeah, it was just a bit like, you know, I'll do it because I sort of should. Everyone tells me I should, but I don't really know why I should. Yeah, and then I got on to my Ps, and with your Ps, you don't need a second person. Your red Ps, there is the restriction of only one peer passenger, they call it, which is like anyone between 16 and 22 or something like that. You can only have one other person in the car while you're on your red Ps. As soon as you get to your greens, that's gone. And there's a few other restrictions like 0 blood alcohol tolerance, no towing trailers. There's probably a few others that I forget. and you tend to get fined more in terms of demerit points and monetary value. So I actually got a fine a year or two ago. I was in a school zone and I didn't realise I was. And I was caught by a speeding camera doing 54 in a 40 zone. And I was fined $700. That was not nice. And I think 4 demerit points, something like that. It was not nice. Yeah. But the car really enables you. And I'm trying to reach out to my younger viewers who are under 18 and don't have their license, because there's such freedom. As Tim says, you can go places, and public transport is great. I still use it, but yeah, it enables you to get to places quicker, enables you to go on your own schedule, and yeah, it's like you can do things like, if you want to hike an abandoned railway line, you can go out and you can explore those places by car and just have a general idea of what you're getting yourself into before you actually go there. And if you can have your own car, even better. But most people can, borrow a parent's car or, inherit a family car or something like that. And that's pretty much what's happened with me. My first car that I'd sort of consider mine was my mum's old van. That was pretty shitty, but hey, it's a car. Take what you've got. My brother and sister, they were quite young at the time. Well, by quite young, I mean like 14 or 15 or something like that. And they were, a bit image conscious. They wouldn't want to be seen anywhere near school with that van, because it had hurt their image a bit. Although they'd never admitted at the time, but they admit it now, that they're a bit older. And so, yeah, something like a van or a station wagon, those are the best for exploring. And, you've probably all seen my love of my old Subaru. That's sort of my second-ish car, was my dad's car. And Dad doesn't drive much anyway, because he works from home and doesn't really go anywhere, to be honest, apart from down to the shops. And so, yeah, I was sort of able to use that a lot. And I've recently inherited my grandpa's van. So each car has their benefits and disadvantages, but if you can get a car that you can sleep in the back of, and that will get you places, that's a good thing. And yeah, what else? Just cars cost money. They cost money to buy, they cost money to run. Be prepared, make sure you can afford it, because it's great if you can. And I try to tell my brother and sister, who, as soon as they get $1, they'll spend $1. I try to tell them to save up so that they can at least be able to, possibly be able to afford a car, possibly just be able to afford the running costs. But yeah, they don't really get it, and I guess you don't get it. I mean, I didn't get it until I got my fees. So there's that. Yeah, I drive to uni some days. I drive to uni because if I go by public transport, it takes me 2 hours. If I go by car, it takes 1 hour. But public transport has the benefits of I don't need to think about driving. You know, I can just sit back, relax, watch some YouTube, watch some Netflix, whatever, do some work. And so I'll go to uni by public transport if I'm going to be there, because it'll take me, if I go public transport, it's a 4-hour round trip. Sounds a lot. And so if I'm going to be at uni for anything like 4 hours or less, then I'll take the car. 4 hours or more, I'll go by public transport. Albert, a car is great for exploring outside of the commuter train network. Yes, definitely. Buses are good as well, but yeah, flexibility. Flexibility is the big thing. And this is why I love Subarus, because they're the perfect all-rounder car for me. You know, they are reliable if you take care of them. They've got the Subaru symmetrical all-wheel drive. So I'll touch on this briefly. There's a difference between four-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. The difference is basically that all-wheel drive has what you call open differentials, or at least not locked differentials. And so the differentials, what they do is allow a difference in speed between your wheels. And when you're turning on corners on roads and stuff, that's what you want. But when you're off-road, traction is your main issue. And so you don't want your wheels to be going at different speeds. And what that also means is in a traditional all-wheel drive, if all your differentials are open, then if one of your wheels loses traction completely, then what will happen is all the power of the engine will be sent to that wheel, and that wheel is just going to be spinning, and you're not going to be going anywhere until that wheel gains traction again. But with something like Subaru's all-wheel drive, they use what you call viscous differentials, and so they're not locked. So the wheels can rotate at different speeds, but they can't rotate at too different a speed, if that makes sense. So it's sort of like four-wheel drive, sort of not. And it's the closest you're going to get to four-wheel drive without being an actual four-wheel drive. And, you know, four-wheel drives are great. I love a four-wheel drive, but for on-road, they're not that great. Their main ability is off-road. But if you want to do a little bit of everything, like for me, obviously I drive mostly on-road, but I do occasionally go a little bit off-road. Not serious off-roading by any means. You know, my car's just stock. I haven't done any real modifications to it. But yeah, you can that can get you even further. And it can really help you. It can help you get out of sticky situations. I once was actually, when I was going to scope out the South Gippsland line, we were looking at a potential campsite in Lang Lang. It wasn't an official campsite or anything. It was just a bit of a clearing. We didn't end up using it because Les got us access to a scout hall. But it was, let's just say it was very slippery. There was lots of mud and the car got bogged. And if I didn't have the Subaru all-wheel drive, I wouldn't have gotten out of there. I had to just find sticks and stuff and jam them under the wheels and reverse. And I was like burning up the clutch, and the car, my old blue Subaru, which is the thumbnail, I don't have it anymore. I sold it when it got really bad. But yeah, it was never the most reliable car, but it always got me where I needed it to go. So that's why I loved it. And it's sort of what caused me to, when it was time to replace it, go out and look for another Subaru Outback, but this time one that was going to be reliable. And so I got one now, a slightly newer generation that's white, if you've seen it in a few of my photos, and it has really low Ks and full service history, maintained really well, and I plan to maintain it properly, and so it should last me quite a long time. Wagon van for the win, cheap, easy camping and road trips. Yep, absolutely. Tim, I still have an 82 Mitsubishi van, but it's an 8-seater. It's great for taking lots of friends along, or take out 8 bolts and 2 rows of seats and makes a little courier van great for camping. Yes, and I believe that would be Mitsubishi Delicia or whatever you call them. They are, I believe, proper 4-wheel drive vans, so that's something to consider. I think old mate Benon has got one of them. Albert, you're lucky. It takes me longer to drive anywhere within Sydney than taking the train on weekdays. Yeah, look, Melbourne's traffic isn't great, but the reason that it takes me so long is because the uni is not accessible by train. Well, like, okay, so I go to RMIT, and there's 2 campuses. There's the Bundoora campus and the city campus. Last 2 years, I've been at the city campus, and that's great. I've taken the training every day on that, because it only took me, the train ride itself was half an hour, and then I'd change it from the street, get on a tram, go straight up the street, and arrive at uni straight at the door, 15 minutes. So all up, including like walking to and from the station, etc. Door to door, home to lecture theatre, 1 hour I gave myself. And yeah, that was pretty good. That's where public transport was really good. But now I go to Bundoora and I've got to change trains again, get off at Parliament, get on a tram and take the Route 86 tram all the way out to Bundoora. And the tram ride just on its own takes an hour. It shouldn't take an hour if it was the train going that far, but it's the tram, and so it has to stop every few hundred metres, and it's just slow. But hey, I don't mind it. Tram's comfortable enough. I get an E or a B class. They're good. Okay. Sydney is a pain drive around. Chats with years ago. Yeah. The basic set of snow trains works brilliantly on 4-wheel drive and all-wheel drive vehicles in mud if your tyres can't otherwise handle it. Yep, absolutely. And that was another great thing. My newer Subaru, it came with snow chains, so that's pretty good. The previous car didn't have snow chains, so couldn't do that. But yeah, mud, you just need stuff that'll dig into the mud. And that's why if you look at proper 4-wheel drive mud terrain tyres, they've got big lugs because you want to dig in, and you also want to, with mud terrain tyres, here's a little tip if you don't know it. If your tyres are anything but proper mud terrains, if you get stuck in the mud, don't just keep spinning your tyres. You're not getting anywhere, and you're actually just going to dig yourself in deeper, and you're going to make it harder for yourself to get out. So, yeah, don't do that. Just stop, and then get traction. Get traction on your wheels. Stick some sticks. If that's all you've got, stick some snow chains on. Yeah, anything that'll just get your grip. But mud terrains, they're a different story, because you actually do want to spin them in mud, because the mud doesn't get trapped in between the lugs. And so if you spin them, what will happen is it will flick the mud out, and it will be digging itself deeper, but you'll actually start to get to a point where it actually does have some traction, hopefully, and you can get out of there. But if you're going serious mud, serious off-roading, then you need to, have other things like max tracks or a winch or something like that that'll get you out of situations. I'd love to get myself a proper four-wheel drive and, kit it out and stuff, but that's a bit outside of my limited student budget at the moment. And plus, I don't really have a garage at home. That's the other thing. We park our cars on the street outside of the house. So yeah, until I either move house, which isn't going to happen anytime soon, or move out, which I guess will happen when I finish uni in, 1.5 years, hopefully, maybe 2. Yeah, hopefully I'll get a four-wheel drive then. The Delica came out later, mid-90s. Mine is a very early Star Wagon, very boot-shaped. So draggy, it will never be stolen. So daggy, it will never be stolen. Yeah. I'm not exactly sure how much this applies in Australia, but I know in at least the US, having a manual vehicle is a deterrent. I think less so here, but still is a bit of a deterrent. We've thankfully never had any of our cars stolen, but I've known friends who have had theirs stolen, where it was all their automatic cars, not the manuals. So that's something. Just a random thought, learning to drive, when driving an easy car versus a shitty car, I think the most ideal situation is to start off in the beginning in an easy car, and then once you're confident and you're not you're past that initial stage of being just overwhelmed with everything, then I'd move up to a slightly more difficult car, because if you can drive the difficult car, then you can drive the easy car. But if you drive the easy car, you can't necessarily drive the hard car well. So I started off in my dad's little automatic MX-6, and man, I loved that car. It was so easy to drive. It was great. And, it's a little coupe, so it's a small car, so it's easy to steer and park and everything. And then it was an automatic as well, so didn't need to worry about gears. Although now that I've learnt manual, I'd like it if it was a manual. But in terms of just learning to drive, fantastic. And it had four-wheel steering as well, which means that actually I hadn't learned how to parallel park, but I was going to check out a bridge in Harcourt with my grandpa, because he wanted to photograph it to model it on his model railway. And so I drove the little MX-6, and he was my, I don't know what you call it now, authorised driver or something like that. Person in the passenger seat, whatever. So we get to the main street of Harcourt, where we're going to stop for lunch, and I need to parallel park. And I've never parallel parked. I haven't even, nobody's told me anything about parallel parking at this point. And Grandpa hadn't really said anything the whole trip either. And so, yeah, I had to park. And the MX-6 was so good because of the forward steering. It just steered exactly how you thought it would steer in your mind. And I parked a perfect park on my first try. And I actually got out to a round of applause from all the cafe people. So that was kind of nice. But then unfortunately, my dad is terrible with maintaining cars. You'd think it wouldn't be too difficult, just send it off to the service people whenever they tell you to. But he didn't do that. Yeah, he had the car from, I think, 1997 when it was brand new, up until like 2014, 2015. And I think he said he serviced it 4 times. Just let that sink in, 4 times. So unsurprisingly, it crapped itself at about 170,000 Ks or so. That was a shame because I really liked that car, and so did Dad. But then he just wanted a cheap, shitty car so that I could use it for my Ps, because when you're on your Ps, you're going to scrape your car at some point. It's just going to happen. No matter how good of a driver you are, it's going to happen on your Ps. So just be aware. And so, yeah, he literally just bought the first car that he found for $5,000 from a dealership, didn't negotiate or anything. And so, yeah, that was my old blue Subaru, and the rest is history. I always keep my eye out for, because Dad's sort of ideal favourite car is a blue manual MX-6 from 1997 or whatever, that generation. And so I always keep my eye out for ones for sale. There's always a couple. They're becoming increasingly rare, but yeah, there's always a couple, and they cost about like $2,000 to $3,000. Maybe that can be his next car once I steal the Subaru. In fact, that can be my master plan, is to spend $2,500 to $3,000. The Subaru is worth about $8,000, maybe a bit more. And that can be my master plan, to buy an MX-6 manual blue and in good condition if I find one. $2,500 to $3,000, and then go up to my dad and say, let's swap. I reckon he'd do it. Then I get the Subaru and I don't spend $8,000. So that'll be good. Mark says, how about some must-have items you always have in your car? Oh, good question. Always have basic repairs, stuff to do very basic repairs. And by basic repairs, I mean repair something that is going to otherwise stop you from getting home. You don't need a complex toolbox. I know Les carries a massive toolbox in the back of his van, but I swear if I asked him when he would use all of his tools, he wouldn't be able to tell me. But yeah, basic toolkit is pretty good. So maybe a ratchet set, small ratchet set, something like a steel, like a hollow steel tube that you can use as like a breaker bar with your ratchet. Some cable ties are good, duct tape, and some oil and water. If I'm going around the city, I don't usually carry that sort of stuff. If you've got ROCV, they give you free towing up to 20 Ks or something. But yeah, if you're going out a bit further, good to carry a basic repair kit with you. It can save you some big bucks, and just have a basic understanding of how your car works and what the different components are. And yeah, you don't need to be an expert You just need to have a good working knowledge. Tim says, always make sure you've got a jack and it's the correct one for your vehicle. Yes, that's another thing. Spare tyre and a jack, because tyres are much better nowadays than they were 50 years ago. You don't get a puncture nearly as often, but it still absolutely can happen. And if you don't have a spare, you'll be caught out. If you get a flat tyre, just pull over. What kills tyres is heat. And if you've got a really flat tyre, you know, that can not be good for heat. If you're going fast with a flat tyre, you'll destroy your tyre because of the heat. And on the note of tyres, I don't have this, but it's definitely something I'm looking into getting, which is an air compressor, something that can just, you know, plug into your normal cigarette socket or something like that, and a tyre deflator. Because if you're going slightly off-road, that can help you. And I'm thinking about getting all-terrain tyres when my normal road ones need replacing as well. Proper size socket to fit your wheel nuts is a must. Yeah. Some sort of tool that can get your wheel nuts off. And know how to change a tyre. There are a lot of people out there who don't know how to change a tyre. If that's just one repair that you learn to do, learn how to change a tyre. My sister actually, she's 18, and she said that she was at school the other day, and I can't remember what she was doing, but basically she was with a bunch of her friends, and the teacher said, who here knows how to change a tyre? And no one put their hand up. So he said, okay, I need to change my tyre. Come and I'll show you how to change a tyre. It'll be a useful lesson for you. And so she learned how to change a tyre. Good thing. Yeah, extension bar. With, as I said, you just need like a ratchet set and some sort of like steel bar, steel tube, or something that can help you get the leverage that you need to crack the bolts or nuts or whatever. Might get cheap four-wheel drives for you. Yeah, look, I'd love a cheap four-wheel drive, but it's the same sort of thing. Four-wheel drives are expensive. Okay, then you can get cheap ones, but they're not going to be that reliable, or they're going to have very high Ks. And you also need to consider with the four-wheel drive, it's not just the cost of the car. If you don't buy one that's already pre-modded, you've got to mod it if you want to go off-roading. So you might want to put some extra lights on there. Might want to put some off-roading tyres if it hasn't got them. Might want to put some draw systems in the back of it or something. And all that adds up. Yeah. I guess I already have a bit of camping equipment that I just chuck in the back of the car. Like tent and such, camping stove, camping mat, sleeping bag, all that. So I wouldn't have to account for those costs, but yeah. Victorian Transport Spotter, the Hills Hill Railway line is becoming a rail trail. Whatever happened to the original vid? You lot walking down it. Yeah, I explained that earlier in the stream, so rewatch it. And the gist of it is we were asked to take it down. And that's a bit of a shame, actually. But yeah. Yeah, I want to ask guys if I can maybe put out that video but not include the parts of us walking on the Hills Rail Line with the tourist railway. But yeah, becoming a rail trail, which is kind of good and kind of bad. Like, I'm in two minds about rail trails. Look, railway fans, they like to get up in arms about rail trails because it's like, oh, you know, it means that, you know, there's no hope for the trains ever running again. Actually, if you look at what rail trails, what their original purpose was, it was literally to preserve the alignment for the case that the railway line would ever want to be put back in there. But honestly, I don't see the Hillsville line coming back anytime in the future. Even if, you know, Melbourne develops a bit, which I'm sure it will, for a long time, the bus will just be sufficient for the transport needs of the area. Sorry to say. It's a shame because the Hillsville line is a very beautiful line, but there's just economics always comes into it. You've got to weigh up the economics. You can't keep everything. And a lot of old railway lines, actually, I'm not so sure about the Hillsville line, but a lot of old railway lines, if you look at like the Parliamentary Act where they were first authorised, they were built because the roads were impassable. And nowadays, all the roads are passable, so there's really no need for the railway line. But yeah. Patrick says my forward drive. I don't know what you're referring to exactly. Tim says, have a large enough piece of thick plastic to lay down when positioning a car jack for changing a car tyre. Yes, good point. You want to spread out, you want to do that so that the weight is spread out a bit. Always practice safe jacking, like never get under your car when you've got it on a jack, because the jack could fail and then the car's going to come crashing down on you, and that won't be nice, will it? And so, yeah. And yeah, you want to pick a piece of plastic or wood or something so that the jack doesn't just sink into the ground. Have a good torch. Yep, good torch. Or just a torch. A torch is better than no torch. As a sort of general torch, I just use my phone most of the time, but I've also got a head torch. Head torches can be very useful. Folding wheel chocks is a good safety item when changing wheels. Yep, that is also a good thing. When you've got your handbrake on, it only locks, your handbrake is only affecting the back wheels. And so if you've got to change your back wheels, that might be an issue. If you're jacking up the back of the car, then what's stopping your car? Make sure that, you know, you do other things like, hopefully your car is a all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, in which case you might want to like make sure that if it's a manual, you leave it in gear. If it's an automatic, you leave it in park. Just cars can be dangerous, but they're safe for the most part. Some old rags or towel to wipe your hands on is handy. Yep, definitely. I always carry like paper towel or toilet paper or something like that. That gets me by on that aspect, and especially if you want to check the oil, which is a good idea when you're going on a long trip. You know, you get the dipstick out, it's covered in oil. You want to wipe it down, put it back in, take it out, then you read the proper level of oil. So you need to wipe the dipstick, and then if you need to refill a bit of oil, then you obviously need to deal with that as well. The rail trail will be between Yarra Glen and Lilydale stations. Yep. I guess I'll walk the rail trail, and I kind of feel like, oh damn, but I didn't actually get to walk the track, like the old abandoned track, because it did look cool in Les's video. But yeah, oh well, you win some, you lose some. And at least it'll be a bit accessible to the public. I'd like to do the Warburton Rail Trail one day. Yeah. I need to consider whether I want to just make a really big day out of it, or because that's like 40, 50 Ks or something. So it'll take me like 10, 12 hours, something like that, of walking. So yeah. Make a planning document if you're going to do a multi-day trip. That's what I did. I had a planning document. Google Docs is great because then it's easily, it's easily changed. You can change it. Everyone can change it. Add all of your people on your trip. Have a shared map. That's why I love the Google services, because it's all very easy for that, and you can edit in real time. Les and I would often have like multi-hour phone calls where we would just be planning out these trips, writing down when are we going to be, like what are we going to be doing on what days. And you need to plan for other stuff, like make a packing list so that you don't forget stuff. We've had people who have not made a packing list and they've forgotten basic stuff like a jumper. So yeah, and think about food as well. The great thing about hiking railway lines is because you're stopping in towns a lot, and so you don't need to carry food for the entire journey. Like on my Hillsville line walk, we were restocking with food every couple of days, and so we never needed to carry more than a couple of days worth of food on us, which cut down on weight, which is always a good thing. But I have been on, proper bush hikes where I've had to carry a full week's worth of food. And it just takes up a lot of space more than anything. Like, I don't mind the weight, honestly. But yeah, make sure you've got good shoes. Because if you don't have good shoes, your feet will hate you by the end of it. I walked the South Gippsland line with, they were sort of, I'll call them hybrid shoes. They weren't, full runners or anything, but they weren't hiking boots by any means. And I did my South Gippsland trip in it. And those shoes were a bit shitty anyway, and honestly, I just wanted to walk them to their death on that trip, which is what happened. But my feet killed me by the end of it. I wish I had better shoes, because no joke, by the end of that 2 weeks, I had at least one blister on every single toe. So each foot would have, 15 to 20 blisters. It was not nice. And my feet were covered in blister tape. That's another thing. Bring some blister tape. It's very handy. But yeah. Tyre fitters tend to over-tighten wheel nuts so much that the car manufacturer's wheel nut wrench can't undo them. This destroys the thread and the wheel studs and causes them to shear off. Yeah, that happens, and that's a shame. I thought they were considering reopening Lilydale to Coldstream. No. Maybe in some far-fetched plan somewhere long ago when somebody had a bit too much time on their hands, but there's no official plans at all. Although Coldstream Station, I believe, is getting restored. Or maybe it has been restored. I'm not sure exactly. Floyd, what you should carry and how to do basic car stuff would be a great topic for an instructional type video for the younger and newer crew watching this live stream, I'm happy to help. Yeah, well, I'm definitely not going to do it on this live stream, but yeah, I'd definitely consider making that sort of video someday. And yeah, I guess I'll hit you up at the time that I do that, and if anyone wants to pitch in, feel free to send me a message. Currently only for sightings. Not sure what you're referring to there. Bring back the inner eastern semicircle railway between Camberwell and Fairfield. Using the tram then bus takes too much time. Yeah, I actually agree on that. That's called the outer circle line, and the outer and inner circle, neither of them were circles. But yeah, outer circle was more of a semicircle. Inner circle, it was literally a straight line. So I don't know how the hell they even got to call it a circle. Probably because they sort of meant for it to, join up, if you think about it, within the street and stuff before the city loop. I think the inner circle line, there's no real need to reopen that because the tram lines are sufficient for going along those ways, and the trains are pretty good. But the outer circle line, yeah, I'd love if that came back, even with the new plan for the, whatever they call it, outer suburban rail loop, the new underground one. That's useful, but I'd also like to see the outer circle line come back as well. And the good thing about that line is the alignment is mostly still there. You have to do a few things, like, for example, the bridge across the Yarra River near Fairfield is now it's now a cycling bridge, I think. It was a road bridge up until a year ago. Now they've built a new road bridge, but yeah, you'd have to build a new rail bridge. And I'd build a double track as well. But yeah, definitely that would be a good thing, and not too expensive. Like the outer circle, the outer Melbourne underground one, whatever, that's going to be quite expensive because you need a big underground, and that's expensive. The thing that costs the most money when you're building a fresh railway line is the land. And if the land is already there, that cuts out major expense. So I'd love to see a business case at least done on it. I wouldn't, in terms of Mark was talking about maybe making it a light rail, I'd make outer circle a heavy rail. It's in a reasonably dense area. Not, yeah. Put it this way, light rails and heavy rails, a good light rail system costs about the same as a heavy rail system, to be completely honest. And so given the choice, you probably want a heavy rail. Light rail is useful if you don't really have the space, but there is the space for heavy rail. So I'd go with heavy rail. Inner circle, there's already trams. There's no need. The old Fitzroy line, it'd be nice, but it's only a couple of Ks and you're sort of going the opposite direction to what the majority of people want, which is towards the city. Yeah, I just don't see a real need for it. It's a nice scenic place, but going through the Edinburgh Gardens, but yeah, I wouldn't bother. There's plenty of trams and stuff there anyway. It would be awesome if the outer ring road that is planned had rail down the guts. Yeah. Well, that goes back to the whole concept of the outer suburban rail loop. I've seen the alignment of the outer ring road, and it comes a bit too close to the Wyndham Vale section of track, the Tyne and Wyndham Vale section of track. I think that's plenty sufficient until Melbourne expands, a lot further. I think that will be sufficient for plenty of time. And by the time you get if you connect that, that connects up to Sunshine, right? And then you've got the suburban loop, which will be going to the airport, which is sort of along the current ring road. I just don't see a need for rail along the planned outer ring road, honestly, if you account for the suburban rail loop. What else is being said? Yeah, look, there's always the argument with railways and such, like with the old Mildura line, the whole debate of, the tracks are all there, why don't you put a train there? Trains are easier for older people, it's true. But at the same time, it's like there is the bus, and most old people can get on a bus. And yeah, buses aren't the greatest, but look, Mildura is a tough one because it's really long. And so it gets to the point where, because I think buses, long distance buses are great. They're great for less populated areas, but Mildura is a fairly populated area, and there's the whole thing about, Swan Hill has a railway line, a passenger train, and Swan Hill is less populated than Mildura. Yeah, it's a bit of a controversial opinion, but I'd even be in favour of shutting down the Swan Hill line in order to boot up the Mildura line. Although I know that wouldn't ever pass. So, should you make a Mildura train? Probably is my answer. And I think that all of the studies that have been done on it, the business cases, they are a bit, what should I call it? The costs are very inflated. Like they say it's going to cost like billions to reinstate a train. It's like, no. A few $100 million, yeah, okay. But billions, no. You've got most of the infrastructure there. They've already spent the money on that line to upgrade it for the Murray Basin project. And you probably need to upgrade it a bit further. And then there's the whole issue of now it's standard gauge. So you'd have to get a standard gauge fleet. And yeah, when V-Line get their new long distance fleet up and running properly, then I think they might consider it. But until then, there's more pressing things to do. The whole rail network has been neglected for 30 odd years. The last time it had a real major investment was, what do you call it? Phoenix. The Phoenix initiative of the late 70s and early 80s. That was the last time that the rail network had a real big proper spend on it. So I think just be patient, honestly. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot to be upgraded. Things have been run down a lot in 20 years, 30 years, 40 even. Yeah. It happens though. What else is being said? And just with the old people, before I forget, if you're so old and frail that you can't get on a bus, maybe you do need to consider moving into a nursing home or something like that. Yeah. Or some sort of way, some sort of thing where you can get more help. Yeah. The Eastern Freeway was meant to have had a tram line down its centre for the original plans. It was then to go to Doncaster Shopping Town, then to Box Hill, then back to the city. Yes. And they've sold off that alignment to good old Transurban or whatever. They've done something to stuff up the line. A few years ago, they were going to put like a fast busway on it, and now I think they're just given up on that idea, and they're just going to expand the freeway. Yeah. And so on the one hand, you go, well, so much for the Doncaster line. You know, that's the land's been there. And that was the big thing. It was like, we want to reserve the land because that's going to be the biggest prohibiting factor in the future. But if you consider the outer suburban rail loop that is planned, that will visit Doncaster. And so then you don't really have a need for that ground alignment. So I'd rather the suburban rail loop, but I wouldn't get rid of the alignment of the historical Doncaster alignment, even though, you know, I never had a train to begin with, but you get what I mean. I wouldn't get rid of that until the outer suburban loop is built, because as nice as the current spending on infrastructure is, the current government won't be able to really get started on it by the end of their current term. And so they're really just banking on having a third term or even a fourth term in office so they can really get it rolling and get it past that sort of critical mass stage where it's gone so far that it would be political suicide to cancel it. Yeah, even if you're the opposition and it wasn't in your plans, it gets beyond a certain point where it's like you've gone too far. You just need to do it. I think they're planning to construct it essentially from both ends, which is a really good idea. So they plan to start building the Cheltenham end of things in 2020, I think, maybe 2022. I think 2022. Start building that end of things, and maybe as soon as next year start on the airport end of things. Yeah. I really do hope that they can get that critical mass of work done. It's because we need vision, we need long-term vision, and that is what you call long-term vision. And yeah, I fear that it will be cancelled by an incoming opposition government who seem to do nothing but just want the exact opposite of whatever the current government wants. So it's like, Dan Andrews wants that, therefore we don't want that. And I think that's a bit of a silly approach. You should assess policies on an individual basis and go, that one's, you know, I agree with that one, I don't agree with that one. Yeah. And a bit of, I guess I'll put in a bit of perspective for my political leanings. I'm very central. I tend not to lean either way, but I always like a good transport spending, so I've liked the current government. But I wasn't unhappy or anything that the Liberals got elected federally. So yeah, just a little note. Western Victoria is good evening. Mark Edge, thoughts on electrification of Melton Bacchus Marsh line? Definitely needs to happen. V-line are running less and less, I don't know what to call them, outer suburban runs. I reckon if you counted the number of runs to Melton and Bacchus Marsh, it'd be more than Stony Point. And so, yeah, I'd electrify. I can definitely support electrification to Melton or Bacchus Marsh, preferably all the way to Bacchus Marsh. I think that Bacchus Marsh has a significant enough population. Once you go Bacchus Marsh, Balan is a fairly small town. That's the sort of next stop on the V-line route. Yeah, Balan is fairly small. And then there's Ballarat. And so and Balan is quite far away from Bacchus Marsh as well. So I don't think there's any point in extending it beyond Bacchus Marsh in terms of electrification. But I think to Bacchus Marsh would be a good idea. If you're strapped for cash, just Melton. But if you can, Bacchus Marsh. Because if you look at the timetable, most of those short distance runs, they do end in Bacchus Marsh. And it's not just because there's a stabling yard in Bacchus Marsh. And same goes for Wyndham Vale. Yeah. If you look at the history, a bit of railway line history, the old Sunbury line from St Albans to Sunbury, that was not electrified a few years ago. And while if you sort of go between Water Gardens-ish through Gigas Rest to Sunbury, you'll find that it is not very populated in between the towns, but I think it's definitely worked out well. Same thing goes for Craigieburn. So all these like little things. Metro should handle the inner city commuter ones. I think it drags V-line down, but they have to do that. Because it means they sort of have to have 3 different styles of trains. At the moment, they've got the H sets, which are the old Harris sets, and they are sort of your commuter style trains, because I mean Harris trains were originally electric trains in Melbourne. Funny thing while I think of it, a lot of non-railway savvy V-line customers love to complain about my 1980s rolling stock and how crappy the 1980s rolling stock is. The year of the rolling stock, I don't think makes a big difference, but what they don't know is the Harris trains were built in the 1950s. So it's actually older than they think it is. It's just the locomotives that were the 80s, the old N classes. But until recently, there was the A class, and that was technically your 50s loco, if you go back to the Bs. So they had 1950s trains, and they didn't realise it. So it goes to show you that age doesn't make as big a difference as you think. But yeah, what I was going to say before was they have to have 3 different styles. They have to have those more. Unstable connection. And we're back. They've got to have those type of trains as well, which the seats are a bit less dense. Harris sets are more comfortable than Velocities, to be honest, in terms of the seats, although they're a little bit more squished. I'd rather an empty Harris than an empty Velocity, put it that way. But they've got to have these 3 different iterations, and then they've got to have the long distance stuff with, you know, a buffet car and even less densely packed and more comfortable seats. And they still like to run first class. I think first class has its days numbered. If I was V-Line, I'd keep first class even in the new sets, in the new long distance trains, because people will pay for first class. And, you know, I've been in first class when it was free. And it's not that much better than economy. You just, like, the seats aren't that much more comfortable. They're slightly wider. Little known fact, the Velocity seats are as wide as the first class NSET seats. The first class NSET seats have a reclining back, and you get a bit more legroom. So it's not insanely more comfortable, but it is a little bit more. And it's not like no one is buying first class tickets. You don't have to buy a first class ticket, but plenty of people do. And it's an extra $20 on top of the fare. So it's more fare revenue. And so I think V-Line would be a bit silly to get rid of it. But they're going to. It's just a matter of time. There's no point having first class on, you know, like the Ballarat, Bendigo, etc. Because, you know, it's only a couple of hours. But for going further, people are willing to pay for first class. So I'd keep it. But if V-Line can reduce their fleet to 2 essential types of trains, their sort of medium distance and their long distance, and get rid of their short distance fleet, that would be most beneficial to them, I think. So yeah, electrify the. There's no point going like electrification to Geelong. Like everyone, that gets thrown around a bit. I don't really see the point. Electrification isn't some miracle, fix all problems, whatever. Adelaide run a suburban network pretty much all on diesel trains. So yeah, it makes sense to a certain distance, and that's where I think Wyndham Vale, Bacchus Marsh, Wallen, that's where I'd electrify to at the current time. And when you look at actually the original electrification network, you know, where was the end of Melbourne? It did go a little bit further slightly into what you'd sort of considered country. So yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. Well, there was RFR back in 07 or whatever year it was. Yeah, Regional Fast Rail. That was a very good project. But yeah, what really needs to happen, the big thing that's going to help everyone with electrification to those areas is there'll be separate. If they do it the smart way, they'll put separate tracks for electrification and V-Line. So then V-Line can run express out of the city and it'll speed up services a lot. There's no point putting like a bullet train to Geelong. I think that's pretty silly. The distance just isn't there. Yeah. Maybe perhaps make it more up to spec with sort of European trains, so maybe like 240 k's an hour or something. But yeah, even then, is there the populace to support that? I don't know. And at the same time, sometimes you do want to build it preemptively in a sort of build it and they will come scheme to encourage people. You don't always want to be reactionary. But that's a discussion for another time. I've also been talking about returning the past trains to Hamilton, where I live, into Horsham, which is also on standard gauge. Yeah, I think that the first step is getting new long distance a new long distance fleet up and running on standard gauge. And then, yeah, Horsham and Dingle and all those sort of places that are reasonably populated. Yeah, I think they deserve to have a train. Although there is a limit. I wouldn't bother putting a train out to, like, I'd go as far as Dunolly, beyond Maryborough, but I wouldn't go any further than Dunolly. There's just not really the populace. Long-term vision, having a look at California's high-speed rail project. Yeah. Although California has got a much higher population than Victoria, so that's something to consider. Tim says, I think electrification to Bacchus Marsh would be worthwhile due to the population growth. Yeah. And, they're building this massive new station in, I forget what they call it now. It was going to be called Toolern, but they've changed the name. I think Cobblebank is what they're calling it now. The massive new station, they're upgrading Ballarat line, which is a good thing. They're upgrading Rockbank. Man, oh man. If you've seen my photo of Rockbank Station, the little corrugated iron shed that counted as the station building, that is going, and man, is there going to be a massive station there. Up until today, Rockbank is a pretty small town. Like, you look at it on Google Earth and you're like, yeah, there's no one there. I can understand why the station isn't that big and why most trains skip it. But definitely the population growth is huge there. And you can see there's like a bunch of estates being built in that area. And, in a couple of years' time, they'll be fully completed and people will be living there. And I think it's a very good move to do these upgrades, and Rockbank will be upgraded to a proper big station with a big overpass, pedestrian overpass and stuff. Yeah, but man, oh man, that'll be some transformation. I'm really looking forward, because I've got the before photos of Rockbank Station with A66, which is great. Now that A66 isn't running, it's like to you. But yeah, I can't wait for the aftershots, because that'll be something. Albert says, do you think the outer suburban rail loop should be an extension of the existing railway network using the same trains, or do, like Sydney is doing, move to a separate network of driverless trains? I think they'd be shooting themselves in the foot a bit if they did it separately. I think it should be, as an extension of the existing railway network, because then you can. The big thing is reliability. We've seen about how reliable the New Sydney line has been so far. So yeah, you have it separate enough so that it doesn't get too much interference, but don't have it use the same rolling stock, definitely. But then again, it's going to the airport, and I think definitely this is what I'd do. I'd run normal suburban trains for the length of it, and I'd also have I'd have a special type of train, or not even special. I'd have a V-line style train that, or at least some sort of luggage compartment. Maybe maybe you could do some sort of project where you make the current trains not carrying the new HCMDs, they're all 2-3 car sets. What you could do is form essentially a permanent 6-car set with them, but have the middle driver's cabs converted to a bit of a luggage compartment. And it's a bit interesting because, you know, do you have V-line style conductors that manage the luggage, or do you just have it self-serve? I'd lean towards more self-serve, but that has its own issues. But for the most part, to answer your question, I think have it the same stuff, because you can use it, and when there's issues, it's much easier for help to be on the way, and it's just everything. They're more compatible. I think it's a bit like the break of gauge problem. You know, it might sound enticing to have it a bit more specialised, but in the end, it's better if you just have everything compatible with each other. So, the Western Victorian Railways, well, the idea for the Hamilton Horsham trains was to run 6-car velocity out of Ballarat to Ararat, and then splitting the train at Ararat with 3 cars going to Horsham, 3 to Hamilton. Yeah, you could do that. Yeah. Well, what they currently do is they run a 6-car velocity to Ballarat, and then they split that, and one half goes to Ararat, one half goes to Maryborough. It's hard. I think it's a bit far for a velocity going out to Horsham and stuff. I think they deserve the new long distance trains when they get going, and in which case it's going to be a bit different. If they're sensible about it, which hopefully they are, they'll have it sort of, I'll call it XPT style, where you've still got locomotives and carriages, but it's not in the traditional sense of locomotive at the front, carriages trailing. Yeah, I think have the carriages so then you can form different lengths of sets very easily, and have the rear loco radio controlled, which isn't too difficult. Yeah. And then for Horsham and stuff, yeah, potentially. Oh, it's a tough one. If there was it could work. But yeah, I don't know. I'm tossing up whether you just run alternating services to Horsham and Hamilton, or whether you just did split service. I'd probably be more in favour of the alternating. I'm out, guys. Have a good one. By the way, California Tigers is Meth West. Look, all right. Cheers, Mark. Life's been going for an hour and 40. Didn't expect it to go for this long, but hey, if we're feeling it, we'll keep going. Rejoin and return to determinant. I'm not a big fan of the whole, regional hub idea. It can work, but I'm more of a fan of just running the same train all the way, and yeah, then it's sort of more reliable as well. You don't have to, if there's any trouble on either the Horsham or the Hamilton run, you don't have to wait for the other one to come in to connect. Yeah. Tim says, do you have any photos of the original Paisley or Galvin stations? Between the Put and London and Galvin was a short raised gravel covered platform with a short raised showed Paisley at a proper station. I don't have any photos on hand or anything, but I'm sure you could find them. Yeah, potentially look at the. I haven't tried this myself, so maybe it will work, maybe it won't. But the old PTC collection of photos that are online, if you Google like the Victorian Public Records Office PTC collection or something like that, I'm sure you'll find it. But yeah, lots of old good photos in there. Yeah, Mark, thanks for the input. Recently turn around is the issue is it's standard gauge, so at this rate they'd have to convert the Ararat line to standard gauge. I think Ararat line deserves to be standard gauge anyway. And if they can, yeah, I think Ballarat to Ararat should be standard gauge. I think that's the next candidate, standard gauge. Well, in fact, with the Murray Basin, I think they were even planning to do that, potentially. Yeah, they were going to look at like doing stupid dual gauge, but that was going to be a stupid move. And I mean, they've run out of money for the whole project anyway now, as the news came out, which is a shame. But I think if they did, what do you call it, the standard gauge from Melbourne, Geelong, then up to Ballarat, then Ararat, then out further, I think that would work. And then that opens up the possibility of a Geelong to Ballarat train, which I think is more viable than trying to go for a full Geelong Ballarat Bendigo train. It'd be nice, don't get me wrong, but just Geelong and Ballarat is a bit more viable, I think. Especially once the two sort of become outer cities, like secondary Melbourne. Geelong already sort of is, but Ballarat's still a bit of a town more than a city. But it's getting there. I don't know. If only they converted the whole rail network to Victorian standard gauge back in the 20s when it was first talked about. If only we all picked the same gauge to begin with, then we wouldn't have the break gauge problem. And yeah, when the railways were first being discussed way back in like the 1850s, that was the one piece of advice from Britain was it doesn't matter which gauge you pick, just pick one. And we didn't. We had to fight amongst each other, and now we're suffering from the consequences. But, you know, it looks like everything is going to go to standard gauge eventually, but it's going to take another couple of 100 years before we really get everything to standard gauge. Tim says, Galvin is totally gone, Paisley platform is still there. I spent many cold, wet days waiting for a derm to Newport or Werribee. Ha! Yeah, good old derms. Yeah, I've got a photo of the, I think, wait, Paisley, yeah. Yeah, so I've got photos of the Paisley platform as it is today, but not the station buildings. Obviously, so they don't exist today. Ours all have a small fleet of variable gauge trains like it's done in Europe. Yeah, variable gauge trains have their own issues. It's sort of like, well, we had bogie exchange for freight. and we had bogey exchange facilities. It'd be nice, but it's sort of a bit of a stopgap solution. I'd rather spend the money on just going for standard gauge everywhere. We can only dream what the railway network would have been like if they'd built one gauge to begin with. Yeah, there'd be a lot less problems, and man, I'd love it if somebody did a proper tally of all of the costs involved, how much money has been lost over the years due to break of gauge. It'd be almost impossible to calculate, but it'd be interesting to come up with an estimate of just Australia alone, how much money has break of gauge cost us, easily in the trillions. In today's dollars, yeah, possibly even in the hundreds of trillions. Think about the investment that could have been made if we didn't have to deal with break of gauge. Well, is there any more questions or anything? Because it's 11 o'clock and I'm happy to keep going, but if there's no more questions or anything, then I guess I'll end it. Speaking of the Portland line, well, the line Hamilton is on. We haven't seen a train down there for a while now. Yeah, Portland's a shame because Portland has a port, hence the name. And I think that the Murray Basin project was going to do a lot for Portland. But now they've run out of cash for that. So, yeah, I fear that Portland is going to have a slow demise. Unfortunately, there are a few railway lines out there that close in that manner where they just don't receive any more traffic. And so they're sort of like, well, if nobody wants to run trains on there, then what's the point of having a railway line? I think the Moolameen line is like that. There's just no traffic, so they close the line. Well, I think with the Moolameen line, it's like, it's a bit of a lot of the infrastructure is still there, but if you want to run a train, you've got to let us know and we'll reopen the line for you. The last train was the AK cars back in October. Yeah, and before the AK cars, it's been over a year, hasn't it? Since PM stopped running trains down there. Which is a shame. But yeah. June is the last grand thing. I think the Port of Portland needs a bit of a cash injection as well, because it looks like most of Pacific National is grain trains, because Pacific National do still run a few grains out that way from standard gauge, but they all go to Geelong or Melbourne, and it's like, that's up to the Port of Portland. If it's cheaper to run to Geelong than Portland, then you're sort of shooting yourselves in the foot there. And yeah, they lost the sand train they used to run here as well. Yeah. The Railways is running less and less freight, and I do blame that partially on Pacific National. They sort of had they had a business mindset, but it was a bit too harsh of a business mindset, if that makes sense. They wanted to take things a bit far, like, yeah, they don't want small jobs, basically, is what happens. And so, yeah, they stopped running freight. Floyd, I'm going to bail out, says Tim. Have to message each other on doing a car-related video, and study times suit you best. Thanks for tonight's chat. It's been fun. Good night to all. Cheers, Tim. The Port of Portland is doing well. In fact, they're a big exporter of wood chips. That's all that comes in. Yeah, but I mean grain. That's what they're getting for rail. All right, well, I think I'm going to end it here, actually, because I still need to get on to a bit of studies. So thanks for watching. It's been almost 2 hours, but it's 11 p.m. now, and hopefully I've figured out the last of my little technical difficulties, and I can have a nice and smooth live stream in a fortnight. Actually, I'm not going to even be here in a fortnight. I might not be here in a fortnight. I might be in Queensland. I'm bailing out soon. Thanks for the video. Cheers, Albert. All right. I'm David Smith, by the way. Seen me around Facebook a bit. Yeah, I think I have. So, all right, guys. Cheers for watching. Hopefully I'll have a proper video out tomorrow. Other than that, maybe see you in 2 weeks. Maybe not. See ya.